people just surprised that I can speak English because in Africa, like we speak African and we don't have shoes and all those things.
You chase
So
lions.
exactly.
So we're gonna learn a little bit more about a different country today.
Ooh.
So what country are you from?
So I am from Ghana, which is this tiny country in West Africa.
So when you gonna fly me out?
Oh, uh, well, you pay for your ticket. I got you
No, no,
on
no. I
everything
said
else.
fly me out.
Yeah, you're gonna have to wait.
What do you miss
Your girl?
most about home?
Oh, where do I start? First, my parents, food, my friends who like I grew up with, just the community, the people. Like it's just I don't know, but yeah, those are a few things. Yes. Food. Did I already say
What
that?
what type of food? Because I've only had the jollof rice, and you brought you brought some seasonings from home.
Oh yeah. So I mean, we have so many different dishes. We have the jollof rice, which is pretty popular. And that's not just a Ghanaian thing. Nigeria has it too, but obviously ours is the best.
It's a whole rival.
Yeah, it's a rivalry. Um, we have fufu, which is also quite popular, like across a lot of countries in Africa. Yeah. Um, and I mean, and we have like basic um, just rice dishes with stews. One thing about Ghanaians is we love our boiled eggs. Like we eat boiled eggs with everything. It's crazy.
You came here in 2018, 2019?
2019, yeah,
2019 for college.
January.
What brought you from Michigan, from Ghana to Michigan? Like,
Guys, I don't even know.
you looked at schools and you said Canada and London as well, too,
Yeah.
but you ended up here. How?
Okay, so my sister actually went to Calvin, which is 9 minutes from Cornerstone, where we went. Um, and when I graduated high school, like we looked at Canada, we looked at London, like she said, and we applied to schools here in America too. But America gives the most like scholarship money or
Yeah.
financial aid to international students. Canada is super expensive, and so is the UK. And America just has like more opportunity after school for international students. Yes, it's hard, don't get me wrong, but it has like way more opportunity. And what specifically brought me to Grand Rapids, Michigan was, like I said, my sister went to Calvin, which was 9 minutes from Cornerstone. So we used to come visit her in the summer. And one summer I had just graduated high school. So we came here. The plan was to take a gap year and study for SATs or whatever. And I don't know how my dad heard of Cornerstone, but he's like, "Oh, I've heard of this school called Cornerstone. We should go check it out." And like just a day before, he had gone to Calvin's international students admissions office, and they said like admissions were closed. So in my mind, I was like, "Oh, there's no way Cornerstone would be open if Calvin is closed, because they probably operate on the same timelines." But we went anyways. He had my high school transcript for some reason. He was on
He
a
was
mission.
ready.
Yeah, and we went to the admissions office in Cornerstone. I was just asked to write an essay, so I went. I met the person in charge of admissions, and they're like, "Yeah, I would like to offer you admission." And I was like, "Wait, what's the catch?" Like,
Right.
it's so hard, like trying to do this whole process from back home, and like you're just gonna give me like admissions right here. And he's like, "We're giving you this much scholarship and aid," and I was like, "Wow, that's like." Yeah, I was like, that was God. Like,
Yeah.
no one else. Like, that was God putting me where I was supposed to be. So that's how I ended up here.
So, like, for us that don't know anything about the immigration process or anything about, like, the international students, what they have to go through, can you kind of explain, like, why you're saying, how is that so easy? Because, like, that wasn't supposed to be an easy process.
Yeah, so basically how the process starts, you enroll in like SAT classes, you have classes for months and months, and then you go and take the exam, which is hard because we in Ghana speak like British English, and then Americans speak American English. So there's like little things like in the SATs, like when they make a list, like say like tomatoes, comma, onions, and say garlic. But Americans will have tomato, comma, onions, comma, and garlic. So like there's little things like that where you have to like learn a whole new
Like way of speaking.
curriculum just to write the, exam. So that's not even the hard part. You pass the exam, you apply to schools with your score. Sometimes you don't hear back. You have to write essays, you have to impress the schools, and it's super expensive as well. Like just paying to write the exam, paying to go for classes. And so after you're lucky enough to get admission into a school, you need to prove that, oh, I can actually afford this, because we cannot apply for loans here.
Yeah.
So everything has to be out of pocket. So that's also an issue, like just proving that
That's
you can even
insane.
afford, the tuition. So you do that. This, if you can prove it, it's cool. The school gives you admission. They give you whatever aid that you've agreed on. The next is the visa process. I was supposed to come in fall of 2018 to Cornerstone. I had all my documents. I had everything. I went to the American Embassy in Ghana to apply for my visa, and they don't have to give you any valid reason. He looks through my stuff and he's like, "I'm sorry, you don't qualify for F1, which is a student visa." And I'm just like, "What?" And he's like, "Here, you can appeal it." So that is like I had to pray before I went for my second one. So I kind of gave up on the whole coming to America thing because I didn't come in September. Around like December, November, Cornerstone reached out to us. And they're like, "Would you like to try for spring semester, which starts in January?" And I'm like, you know what? Why not? And it's expensive, like even paying for to get the visa interview itself. But my parents were like, let's just try. We've been praying, so maybe this is God answering.
Yeah.
So I
You
prayed,
ended up
I
here.
prayed, I prayed. I had my interview, I think January, maybe around the 10th. It was the easiest thing. Like it was like literally less than 5 minutes. I had my visa. I left.
Wow.
In like less than a week. I was on the flight.
Dang.
Yeah. So that was definitely God, and I think His timing for me. I'm just gonna say that. And so yeah, that's how I ended up here. And that's not the end of the struggle. It's just the beginning. When you get here,
Yeah.
you're met with the culture shock. And one thing I always say became more real to me when I came here was racism. Like I'm from Ghana. Everyone looks like me. We hear of racism. Don't get me wrong. I know what racism is. We know our history of our ancestors who were sold as slaves and everything. But I had never really experienced it, because like I said, everyone
You were the
around me looked
majority.
like me. Exactly, I was
Yeah.
the majority. So coming here it was just an eye-opening experience. I learned more about racism. I experienced racism because I went to a college which was predominantly white. So
Tell us
just
some experiences, like some specific experiences you had with people.
oh gosh. So this was the worst. I think one summer I worked on campus, food services, and Cornerstone hosts like a bunch of like young boys for like baseball camps, I think. So one day I was like minding my business, walking to work, and then there was this like three little boys standing by the window of the dorm, and they like literally screamed the N word at me for no reason. So I'm just like shook because I think I was a freshman still, so it was still all new. So I stopped and I looked up at them, and I'm like, what
Is
just
this
happened?
real?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like what? I see this on TV, I see this in the movies, but this just happened to me, so it was like I don't even know how I felt in that moment. I was more shocked than anything, than hurt.
Yeah.
The fact that it was these 9-year-old like boys saying this. The one I experienced in college was, people just surprised that I can speak English because, in Africa, like, we speak African and we don't have shoes and all those things.
You chase lions.
Exactly. So this girl comes to me after my presentation. She's like, "You speak English so well. Like, you barely even have an accent." And I'm like, "What does that even mean?" And I was asked, like, "Do you know what Disney is?" Like, things like that. Very, like, they, like, you can tell that they look down on you just like when you open they don't even give you an opportunity. You open your mouth, you have an accent, you're African, automatically you're below them. So it was like definitely a struggle. Like
That's part of it, I would say, is the culture of the household they grew up in, and the other part is our education system. It sucks when it comes to learning about even African American culture, and we're here. And so like like the stuff that I learned in school about Africa literally was that like you're poor, they don't got no food, they're starving, they have diseases. Like that's literally what we learned about Africa.
And when they advertise, you see this little boy with like
with his ribs sticking out
and like a little cup drinking dirty water.
I'm like so that's literally how they advertise it.
And like, don't get me wrong, there's like rural areas in Africa where
There's
not as
everywhere.
developed as America. But come on.
Yeah.
You know.
That's insane. So like in your early stages of college, you kind of didn't even want to speak in class sometimes because of your accent and because like you just were so self-aware.
That's true.
So like how did you, I guess, come out of that, and like what made you like become more confident in who you were?
So yeah, like I was saying, freshman year was tough. It got to a point where sometimes I'd be speaking and it would sound wrong even in my own ears. Like I'm like, you can't even speak English. That sounds so wrong. So just keep quiet, you know. Because I would say stuff like, I pronounce my T's like water, and then they're like, what? I'm like, can I have some water? And they're like, what? Oh, can I have some water? Like, oh, you know, so things like that. So I just shied away from answering questions in class, and I won't lie, my insecurity got to me a lot too. Like, yes, there were external factors, but also like there was a lot going on the inside. You know, it's like an identity crisis. Like, do I speak like do I try to speak like the Americans? Do I stay true to who I am? And so like after like a semester or two of like all of this, I feel like something just snapped in my head, and I was just like, you know what? This is me. This is my accent. If you can't hear me, that's okay. Like, you know, and I just like kept doing me. And my mom is like, I told her about all this, and she's like, you know what? People are going to look down on you regardless. Like, this is the perception of Africa that has been put out there. Just use it to your advantage, is what she says. These professors assume I know nothing, you know? So one day I remember I was late in submitting like an assignment for one of my classes. And so I was a professor, and I'm like, oh, I'm from Africa. Like, we don't really have like these computers and stuff. So like, I don't know how to log in. So can you please reopen the quiz? Oh, like clockwork. Gosh. He's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I understand. He opened the quiz and I didn't.
You're wrong.
So like,
like this man.
Like, I'm gonna use it to my advantage, you know, as much as I can, and I just accept that this is what it is. And people's perceptions are gonna be different, and that's okay, you know.
So, how often did you see your family and friends from back home when you came over here?
So, I'm fortunate enough that my parents can come here like in the summer, so they would come in the summer, and I would usually go home for Christmas when I was on my visa, because it was just that easy. You just needed to get a ticket. So I would be home like literally for 5 weeks in the whole year. There's 52 weeks in a year. And so that was really hard. Like leaving whenever I went for 5 weeks, knowing that I won't be able to go home for 12 months. Yeah. It was hard. But at the same time, like, this is the life you chose, you know? Yeah. And eventually I'm hoping it all pays off. But yeah, it sucks to see your parents twice a year. Yeah.
So tell us a story about how you arrived here and
what
you were wearing
in
the middle of winter.
Guys, I knew like it was cold. I knew the snow was cold, but like, come on. I come from Ghana. It's like 80 degrees all year round. I'm like, how cold could it be? They're exaggerating. I came to America in January wearing a skirt. And flats. No winter jacket in sight, okay? Yeah, safe to say I froze. I was shocked, not only culturally, but literally. I was frozen. But I don't know what I was thinking. Like, till today, we still laugh about it. Like, our friend still laughs at me every time.
That was funny to me.
I don't
know.
You
didn't think to bring any kind of jacket or anything?
I couldn't tell you what I was thinking. Like, how do you show up to Grand Rapids, Michigan in January wearing a skirt? Like,
and flats.
No, and flats. I don't know.
So, like, you came here, like you said, you had experienced culture shock, not just the racism, but also the education system. And so, like, you said coming from Ghana, like, it was so hard. And then you came here and you like, oh, this is easy. Basically, you calling us dumb. That's what.
No,
No, but
but
like compare and contrast kind of like America and Ghana's education system. What you experience?
huh. Honestly, I would say I prefer the education system here just because it's more practical.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, let me just give some backstory. So in Ghana, when I went to secondary school, like high school, it's 3 years. So at the end of these 3 years, there's one big exam which quizzes you on everything you've learned
Mm-hmm.
for the past 3 years. And I had like some class like bio, like I had like three notebooks. Then there's chemistry, physics, and there's math, and you have to memorize everything to answer like 5 questions per subject.
Mm-hmm.
After like it's just crazy to me. Like so that's why when I came here, I was like, study guide? Like you're giving me the questions?
Right.
Like so it was definitely like nice, but I would say it like prepped me for like, coming here. I was
Mm-hmm.
like
Because
so I didn't struggle
honestly,
too much, yeah.
honestly, like I took that for granted because I didn't realize that that was. I don't know. Like to me, a study guide, because that was what I grew up on.
Hmm.
That's like, no, that's not enough. I need you to like tell me what's gonna be on the test.
To me, I'm literally like you're literally handing me my A right
Mm-hmm.
there, like a study guide,
Yeah, it
like
definitely prepared you because
yeah.
it did. That it doesn't do the same thing for me. It doesn't, because like
Yeah.
this is like okay, because I've had study guides where it's like okay, I studied this and this wasn't on the test,
No.
and so like you're so used to studying all of it.
Yeah.
I'm not used to that. I studied the study guide. That's
Yeah.
it. And then if it's not on the test, then I'm done for.
I'm like I feel spoiled. But study guide. And like things like office hours. Like
Mm-hmm.
back home, if a teacher teaches you something and you don't understand it, too bad.
Yeah.
You need to find a friend who can explain it to you. And sometimes, teachers will not show up to class. They don't need to give you an excuse because I went to a government secondary school.
Mm-hmm.
So basically almost free.
Mm-hmm.
Like, nobody cares if you pass or if you fail. So it's just pretty
You're
much
just
up
on
to
your
you.
own.
Yes. You need to go around fishing for, like, oh, like, what did you guys study? Like, I need to compare notes to make sure I have everything.
Mm.
And it's just so, like, just so strict. Like
That
it
sounds
doesn't give
stressful.
like in Cornerstone they have a Korean Life Center called Korean what? Life
Career and life
calling?
calling.
Yes. So if you have like maybe anxiety while you take tests
Mm-hmm.
or you need extra time, they have a room for you and I'm like
Yeah.
they don't even believe in things like test anxiety back home. You're gonna take the test with everyone else and if you fail too bad. Like so here there's just a lot of grace I feel like and
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, I've enjoyed the education system here
Mm-hmm.
way more.
So now we're graduated. Woo-hoo. We made it
Finally.
through. Um,
Barely.
and you are now like your visa status is now like explain that because I don't want to mess
Oh,
it up the
guys,
words.
that is. Anywho, so when you come into America as an international student, you come with a 4 to 5 year like F1 visa is what they call it. So that's what makes you legal in the country. So after you graduate, depending on what you study, there's STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math. You qualify for a 3 year work authorization like card, and if you're not in STEM, you get a 1 year
Mm-hmm.
like work authorization. It's called the OPT, which is the I don't know what that means, optional something training.
Mm-hmm.
So that's currently what I'm on. What's making me legal to work, but the thing is, like if I decided, okay, I'm gonna go home now, I will not be able to come back in because it's not a visa, it's just a work authorization. So it's really hard because I used to go home every Christmas and that was like the one thing I looked forward to. Like I
Mm-hmm.
get to go home after all this, stress and just be at home, be like just in my safe place. But like
Mm-hmm.
it's just not like that now that I've graduated.
Yeah.
So now the struggle is I think I have like 5 more months of my OPT left. I need to immediately go to grad school,
Mm-hmm.
else I will become illegal in the country. Like it's really hard.
Yeah.
But, like I said, it's the life I chose. So,
Yeah, but it shouldn't be that hard. Like the fact that um, like you have to get sponsored by like your job, right, to get
Yeah,
like a visa, and it's expensive,
that's
right?
true. So I forgot to talk about this, but two ways that you can get to stay here legally long term is if you find a company that's willing to pay for like a work visa for you, which eventually leads to a green card, which is permanent residency,
Mhm.
or you get married.
Mhm.
Those are literally the only two options as an international student.
Yeah.
So yeah, they
You
just
gotta
make it
find a
really
hubby.
hard. Yeah.
What struggles then like did you have finding a job in your field? And like tell us a little bit more about your major too and what you studied.
So I studied business administration, very broad, with a minor in psychology. Yeah, basically. And with my struggle hunting after college, uh, yeah, it was hard, honestly. I will get the interviews. I will ace the interviews, okay? I am good at interviews. I know this. And they'll be very impressed, and they find out you're an international student. They're like, oh, never mind. I actually had an offer rescinded because I was an international student. Because no company wants to deal with the whole, like, oh, I have to pay to sponsor you. Or after a year, when your work authorization expires, I don't want to have to look for a new employee. So I'd rather hire, like, an American, you know. So the system does not really favor us at all. But grateful to God, I found a job that I really like. And, you know, things are working out. So
So what are you doing now?
I actually work in HR right now. You know, hire people, fire people, that kind of thing. Um, just talking to people. Honestly, there's like customer service incorporated in the position too because I talk to people all day, emails, teams, all of that. But yeah, the main thing I do is like definitely like hiring, firing, because the company is really big. They own a couple of not a couple, a lot of like small companies all over America. So we kind of the umbrella company and we do all the paperwork for them. Yeah, so that's a little bit of what I do.
So what would your dream career be?
Huh, that's deep stuff. I think I'm on the right path right now. I definitely think like in a couple of years as I find my footing in this country, I would like to get more into the DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion side of HR and talent acquisition. And so that's what I'm praying for. And I know
I
with
can see you in
time,
that.
yeah,
Yeah. Because you did some of that in college too. So you got some
right,
background.
yeah, and also make money, lots.
A lot of money.
So,
Get the dough.
yep.
So what advice would you give like international students or even people who are looking to come to America or just any other country that will have to deal with the system, like, and they're just wanting better opportunities? Like, what advice would you give them?
First thing I would say, I'm not gonna sugarcoat. It's hard. Like it's a lot of emotional, mental. Like you have to be strong. You have to not give up because at the end of the day, it's gonna be worth it. I promise you. Like the opportunities here are so good. So if you're able to get your foot in the door, don't give up. Just keep going, keep fighting.
What
That's
do you
what I would
feel
say.
like kept you going?
Just my like the goals I have for myself, like where I want to be, is what drives me, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, I'll be back home in my parents' house.
I know you talked a little bit about like how in Ghana there just weren't like jobs. Like you didn't have a job until you came here, right?
Yeah.
So like if you were to go back home with your degree, would you be able to find something?
Okay. The norm, like in, I don't want to speak for all African countries, but at least in Ghana, is we don't really work until, you know, after college. And then, like, you live with your parents. We're very, like, what's the word? Like, what's the opposite of individualistic?
Collectivism.
Yes, that's the culture. So it's not normal for a 16-year-old to be working like back home. And even with that, I also think a reason is because we don't have the jobs, you know.
Yeah.
I have friends who graduated college, no job, you know. And if I was to go back home now with my degree, I'd say I'd have to be very connected to even get something even close to where I am right now. Even though like here in America it's just entry level, you know, you just graduated. It's
Mm-hmm.
not that big of a deal. Back home you need to know people in high places and that's what it's about, like unfortunately. So if you're not connected, chances are you're probably not gonna have a good job or a
Mm-hmm.
job at all.
What about entrepreneurship? Is it the same?
Honestly, right now Ghana is like doing really well with like tourism. So I would say like if you have an idea, like even a restaurant, because Ghanaians like to enjoy themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have an idea and you're able to like, I don't know, go through with it,
Mm-hmm.
able to even afford it in that economy,
Yeah.
good luck. Yeah, I feel like you would do good. Like I
Mm-hmm.
mean, both of my parents kind of have their own thing. Like my mom has like a school,
Mm-hmm.
which I mean it's doing okay. Um, my dad had a little like financial something on the side, you know,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I would say like it's not so bad. Like if you want to start your own company, you just have to have a lot of money.
Mm.
And we're not a very like credit based.
You gotta have the
Yeah,
cash.
you have to have cash. We're very like liquid. Like if
Yeah.
someone is building you a house, you need to have the cash.
Mm.
Pay for it, you know, not like America that's like you can, you know, get a loan and pay it off. We have
Mm-hmm.
loans, but like they're not as accessible as
Yeah.
here, you know.
Makes sense.
Mhm.